Welcome to another episode of Transformation Time. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either Transformation Time or Behind the Scenes. My name is Tannahill Tannahill, and today's guest speaker is Paul Tannahill. On Transformation Time, our guest speakers are real estate investors, and they're here to help you by sharing their personal development journeys and the mindset shifts they've gone through to get to where they are. And if you want to join my show, and if you would like to be a guest on my show, send me a DM. I would love to chat with you, and we'll definitely schedule you in. So let me get Paul on. Oh, is Paul on? He is not on yet. Okay. While we wait for Paul to come on, let me know how are you in the real estate world? Are you in as a professional? Are you in as a real estate investor? Are you doing both? I know we put a lot of value, as investors, we put a lot of value in the professionals that we work with, either doing it themselves or working with real estate investors. But usually I feel like once they see how the numbers and everything work, they usually start becoming investors themselves because there's just tons of benefits involved in that. Yeah, Tom says both. I hear you. I think, right, you hear the benefits of just, you start seeing it and you want to be involved with it. I even knew that specifically a lawyer who, he just saw the deals going through and he saw, what they're buying at and what they're selling at, and he was just kind of like, I need to be involved in this. So it is a lot of, it's stressful, but it's definitely a lot of fun. Realtor, so Tom's a realtor and an investor. Yeah, I think realtors have the best, they have the best ins because you get to see all the amazing deals that go by. And you get to cherry pick those probably a lot quicker than us. That's for sure. So let me see. Oh, I can see Pavel's on. Hey, Pavel, how are you doing? Let me see. I don't know what happened to John. He might be struggling to get on. I know he's waiting, but I don't know if he sees me live. But Pavel is a real estate investor, and he actually works in, he invests and works. So I feel like that's that, and especially like you do real estate quite often. So I feel like that's quite, there's a lot of work because I used to do that too. I was actually able to double my income. So I was able to, my goal was that I wanted to, I think we see John there. Just going to finish my story. John, sorry. I see, yeah, perfect. I can see Paul on. I'll just finish my story quickly. My goal was that I wanted to replace my job income with real estate. And once I got to that point is when I became a full-time real estate investor. So definitely setting a goal. If you do want to do this full-time, hey, John. You sound like a mortgage broker because this says mortgages, so I'm going to assume. Let's get Paul on. Let's hear his story. Oh no, Paul, and actually now I say it, Paul, you're on your computer. So this has to be done on the phone. So if you want to just quickly get on your phone and we'll do the live that way, that'd be great because you can't use your computer. It doesn't allow that option. That being said, also, if you are on your computer, if you are on your phone and I can't invite you, it may also mean that you have to update your Instagram account. So just double check that. Oh, awesome. So John is a mortgage broker and a real estate investor too. That's awesome. And I'm curious actually with all of you that are responding, which one did you get into first? Were you a mortgage broker or a realtor first and then just saw the numbers going in and then wanted to get in? Or were you an investor first and then just thought it'd be so much easier to help yourselves out with becoming a mortgage broker or real estate investor? Okay, let me see. So Paul is back and started. Focused on multifamily and STR in the US. I know everyone's leaving Canada. I don't blame you all. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Slowly but surely,
No
I'm
problem.
here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And uh, and I'm so excited to have you on to hear your story. So let's just get started with starting with a little bit on just telling the viewers what's your real estate strategy, what's your experience like, and just anything in general you'd love to share.
Sure, thank you. I've been in real estate for a fair bit, passive and active and stuff like that. Right now, my main focus is multifamily apartment buildings from, I guess, 10 plus. 10s and 20s are pretty good, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm working on one that we're supposed to close today, which we've got a slight extension. I'm thinking the amount of work that I'm
You
doing
want
on a 10,
to go bigger?
it's not much difference doing a 50 or 100. So if you're going to spend the time, you might as well spend it wisely. So definitely I'm going to have to review that. And so we prefer to use the BRRRR methods, the buy, the renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. I really like that method. And it was funny because 25 years ago, I purchased my first primary residence with my brother. And then I did a bridge loan from that house to buy an investment property. And I BRRRR'd it, but it didn't have a name at the time. It was just, how do I get my money back? I don't want it sitting too long. And that project, it was my first one, and it took 3.5 months.
Awesome. And what even,
Uh,
so you said you bought your first property with your brother. What even got you into thinking about, like, did you have influence from somewhere that real estate was a good thing to buy or invest in, or what actually influenced you to even, like you said, even get to that second one where you had that bridge loan to invest in the property?
yeah, so I was very fortunate. When I came out of high school, I did a couple odd jobs and stuff, and one of them to piece the pieces together, put the pieces together, was construction. And it was just working with an engineer and stuff and doing the labor, whatever he wanted done, put some pegs in the ground and whatever he asked. And then I started doing renovations, kitchens and bathrooms for one of my friends that was doing flips in the Scarborough area. That was back in 88, 89, 90, 91. And interest rates were 18 to 22% back then. And the market was really going good. It was like nobody would be able to afford a home, just sort of like what I think people were thinking just 2 years ago, that the houses are just going to go up, 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 and they'll never come down. And they did slightly come down just recently, but nothing compared to what 1990 and 91 did. We had a property up for sale for 365. It was sold 2 weeks prior to the people taking possession of it. They backed out on the deal, and the whole entire market was just crashing. It just seemed like it was like a day, but I'm sure it was happening over a few months. But it wasn't. It did not take nothing compared to the market going up. It came down in like a tenth of the time. And so, worst case scenario, we're like, well, we've got to get rid of it. So we put it back on the market and ended up with, I think it was
Oh, wow.
183,000.
So it cut it in half almost.
Yeah, like the market just plummeted. Like
Mhm.
it just couldn't hold, right? Now the good thing is my partner was holding most of the responsibility, but also because of the strategies that he was applying, he was living in it for a year, and we were fixing it up as he was living there. So it was his primary residence. So he didn't take the fall as so many would have. by speculation, holding, you know, 2 or 3 properties at the one time. That would have been a disaster. And a lot of people, I'm sure, went bankrupt in those times. As I'm assuming that, you know, over the last year, I'm sure there's a few people that from the speculation was
Yeah, I
hurt hard.
completely agree with you. And like that, he just knew his capabilities, you know. He probably was like, okay, working one at a time is best, because like that, if you're working at 3 or 4 projects at the time, you do have to have some kind of safety net for once you're starting to go larger, you have to have the money. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you have to, you know, everyone thinks like, oh, no money down, no money down, no money down, and like do it that way. But reality is you can do like what usually we do. It's like, well, let's say we invest, we don't have any money down, but we have a lot of money for a lot of just in case if things happen, or specifically when you're seeing markets turn, you know, or like let's say right now, I mean, cash is king. So right now it has to be with money. But even before, you know, when you see things like having that money to be able to transition quickly is very important. So I love that you said that, because you're right. Like people can grow big for sure if they want to, but it comes with all the risks and understanding how you're going to get out of those risks, or what you can do with it when something comes up.
Sure, yeah, the exit strategy is very important. I find, especially in real estate and stuff, we have a lot of buzzwords and everybody loves to fly them around. But most times I find that a lot are not digesting the actual
Mm-hmm.
meaning.
100% agree.
Um, yeah, so I find it amusing in some ways. It just makes me want to sort of digest the meanings more. Like, you know, oh, it's multifamily is always a big team, and then everybody wants to do everything on their own again. And it's like that's the opposite of team. Like when I was in singles, duplexes, triplexes, quads, I was doing almost everything. You know, I was preparing my mortgages, I was doing the renovations, I was doing the staging, I was doing the property management, I was doing the refis, I was, you know, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
basically everything. And then I realized, obviously, even in that environment, you can only do so much and you're limited to what you're able to do. But truly, your power team in multifamily is a very important structure. It could be almost like the foundation on
Mm-hmm.
the home, right?
Completely
Building.
agree with you.
It can really, yeah, it can really make a good, stable growth in your investment, in your building, and definitely plowing forward when obstacles will occur, because they will
Exactly.
occur. It's not about what will happen. Something will happen. It's about
Mm-hmm.
how is it resolved. Uh, I had one of my investors, and he said to me, he says, you know, how come your building went so smooth and this other one's just a disaster? And I said to him, it's not that we did not have any problems. We had many problems. It was just they were just quickly resolved and identified. And that is the important part, right? Even this deal that I'm working on that's supposed to close today, I don't think people will realize the amount of hiccups with realtors, lawyers. There's always something. Even though people have done it many times, there's always stuff. It's not about will they happen, it's about what will you do when they do happen. That's the
Completely agree.
important
And
part.
I think it's also just a lot to do with once we get into the investor world, it's also we're not doing things in the standard way. So there's usually already like so many different things. Either maybe we're shortening the time of closing. And so now you're depending on like everyone to get everything done super quick. Or for example, like that at value add properties, which is exactly what you like. We also love that too, but that also comes with like lots of little problems that you have to figure out that could like, let's say, stall the closing from happening, because, or little things that you see, like things coming up on title. that because we're doing quicker closings, you know, you're identifying those quicker, but then now they may delay it, you know, whereas like someone else, like other people are maybe doing their closings like 2 months, 3 months out, and they have a lot of time to get those things figured out. Like I feel like in the real estate investor world, we just naturally see a lot more problems because we're, to be honest, fixing a lot of problems is usually what it is. Usually the kind of houses we're looking at is we're there to fix issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Resolving maintenance and management, it's the
That's
best,
awesome.
right? If you can fix the maintenance and the management, that's, you know, you're increasing the NOI and you're lowering your expenses. It's the best formula for what we're
100%.
trying to accomplish.
And so it sounded like you took a bit of a break on the real estate side and then came back in, right? You had a bit of a break in between?
Yeah. So I was working full time for a company. I also owned a company. So I was working in the GTA for a car company for 14 years. And then I also had my own business in Niagara, and I was doing renovations, and I was active in real estate for about 5 years. And that's when I was 37, I was financially independent, and I separated from the full-time employment. I sold off the company, and there's lots of other things happening, like got married, we had our first child. So in those 5 years, the last 3 years was married, year later, child, and then the third year stopped working. So it's not what people, you know, plan on doing, but it was a great opportunity. My plan was actually a 10-year, and in the fifth year, it just sort of came into that, and that's what it was. So I guess in some ways, in a lot of ways, I was very fortunate because the real estate was all set up, and I put it all on autopilot. So I kept it on autopilot. I was 15 years. I was a passive investor. I had investments, but I had everybody doing things on it. So there wasn't very much for me to do. And I was able to, we had 3 kids. We have 3 kids now. And, you know, go on the school trips, volunteer at a lot of different organizations, and do a lot of that kind of work, you know, pick the kids up, drop the kids off. Truly a blessing, and definitely wealth for life. And so it was all good. You know, we traveled many parts of the world in those years as well. And then just about 2.5 years ago, I decided to become active again and restructure everything. And that's when I decided to go into multifamily. I thought, you know, if I did what I did before, I'm going to be like all over, have all these managers, all these contractors, and it would be scattered, you know, all the different roofs, all the different furnaces. And I spoke with this lender in BC, and he says, listen, if you can meet these certain criterias, I'll loan you whatever you need. And yeah, that sounds like a plan.
That's awesome. So I wanted to reiterate
So
something that you said that I thought that was so impactful and important, and I wanted to make sure everyone heard, because I kind of went through the same thing. Was you talked about you had a 10-year plan. I also had a 10-year plan for my real estate, and it ended up going shorter. And a lot of people always think that in the short term, like they think, for example, oh, I want to be out in 1 year, for example, and it doesn't happen, and they get demotivated and stuff. But if you're thinking in a 10-year plan, because I also thought in 10 years, and I drastically, by chance, I don't know if by chance, but I mean, I guess like I was so motivated, or like I just saw the road of how it would happen, that it got shortened up. Because, and I think it's like because we have like the communities and everything that help out. I mean, now I know for you maybe it was a bit different, but for me, I think being a part of the communities and everything helped me motivate me to move faster just because you see everyone going and you're just like also going into it. But I wanted to reiterate that because I thought that was so impactful, because a lot of people don't think like that. You know, they'll think like 1 year, and then maybe like 3 months down the road, they're like, oh, I'm not seeing the results, you know, and then they give up so quickly. And I think the better approach is thinking like that. Build out your 10-year plan, and at least you kind of have that goal, and you'll see that it does drastically change, because like that, like you just start seeing that things start ramping up at a certain point, and then and
Mhm.
like you said, you know, you were able to be like free from your job and everything in within 5 years. So I thought, you know, you probably didn't even think that. You're probably like, oh, I still have another 5 years to go, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, clearly things went a lot faster than expected, because it's like that. Getting the ball rolling is the hard part. Once you have it and it's steady, then I feel like that thing starts flying a lot faster.
Yeah, and I guess that's the saying. You know, we overestimate the short term. Like we think we're going to accomplish so much in 1 year, and then we get discouraged because we didn't meet those goals because we underestimated a lot of things, and then we give up on our 5 year. And the 5 year is really where it really plays in and snowball sort of the effect. And like when I think about it, prior to my 2 years, I made more money in the 15 years when I wasn't working 9 to 5 in my passive income, than the time I worked my
Mm-hmm.
whole entire life. And I don't know if people can really grasp that sometimes. Like, you know, I worked since I was 16 to 37. So, you know, I worked
Almost 20 years, 21 years.
21 years, and in 15 years, I made more money than that
Mm-hmm.
whole entire time. Probably double or
Yeah, that
triple
was the
than
same
that.
thing with me. I was able to do real estate part-time. Well, not the full amount, but the increases that I made in my income, and to be able to go into this full-time, it was same thing. I just basically got a business up and running in like 3 years. And it was so shocking to me that I had like built up all that income. And to be honest, in year one, I was in shock at how much money I made in year one, let alone getting to year three, of like year three, yeah, or four, I can't remember. But yeah, it's just you don't realize how impactful it is, and how much freedoms. Like, yes, being an entrepreneur does come with its stresses and things like that. But it also comes
Mhm.
with a lot of freedoms. And like that, once you start balancing it out, then you start, I don't know, you start realizing the world is just so different on the entrepreneur side.
Yeah, it's a completely different perspective of uh, looking at money for sure. And you need that sort of perspective. And I usually say to people, like a lot of people, I can pay for their services. I can pay $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, or they can actually take part in stuff, and their 1,000 might be the equivalent of a 10,000 in a project. Where in a year that will probably, or sorry, in let's say 10 years, worst case scenario, that 10 will be
Mm-hmm.
worth 20. Now, if they keep doing that, they'll be very wealthy. But if they keep chasing the carrot, which is keep taking that $1,000 and burning it up on wants, usually, they never really become wealthy. They just still try to
Mm-hmm.
be
And they're
rich.
just working in the grind is what happens. You know, it's just like you're always working for the next thing, whereas, I don't know, the way we're working, we can decide to work or not work because we have our passive incomes, or we have our businesses running for us to kind of give us those leeways in times that we want to, let's say maybe we want to take a break, or we want to, like you were saying with yours, right? Like you had all your systems in place and you could take a break, and that time, you know, you got married and everything happened, but it's because you had built that whole foundation there to give you the time that you needed to do the things that you wanted to do.
Yeah, and the last 2.5 years has been very interesting. So um, obviously I've re-educated myself. I think that's very important. The first investment is in ourselves. And then the second investment, a year ago, I just wanted to add zeros to everything I did. So, add zeros to the units I'm working with, add zeros to my income, and add zeros or a zero to my net worth. And it went a lot faster than I expected. And then for the next year, I think it's more about stabilization because I'm already on that sort of treadmill. And then from that, once I create the stabilization, then I think I can grow from there.
That's amazing. And what do you think, actually, curious on your thoughts, what do you think was the reason for adding the zeros in all those places? What made it go faster? What do you think actually helped you to achieve your goal much faster?
That's a very, very good question. So it's something that I know exactly the answer because a lot of people look at me and say, "Oh, wow, you've done very well in the last year. Let's say 100 units in a year approximately," and I always tell them that it's not me; it's the people I've been working with. So the people that I partnered with have really are really a portion of, well, they're definitely a big portion of the success of the accomplishments and stuff. We've bird, I think we're on our fifth apartment building. They're all 15, 23, 21, 22, 6 I think is the smallest. My kids have got a triplex they're doing very well on. And then we have larger ones as well that we're working on. But yeah, definitely it's the partnering and stuff like that. It's the people, it's their experience, their knowledge that has really made the success of what takes place, right? Like, I've been very fortunate to work with some great people. I've done wholesaling. I've wholesaled apartment building in Windsor. Lots of different things, and it's just the people I've been working with that have made the transition so good and successful.
And I'm curious, with your experience in entrepreneurship and past real estate experience, and I'm sure also work experience, what from there did you take to help this become, like, your current teams and your current business become successful?
First, I think it's identification. You have to be able to identify your strengths and your weaknesses, which are your assets. And then you have to look at, so I say it's 1, 3, then 2. So 1 is identification, understanding where you are, what you're bringing to the table. 3 is what you want to achieve, where you want to be. And then 2 is just filling in the pieces to be able to look at that. We have a destination. We want to go, to the sunny side of the world and absorb some sun. Then we figure out our destination. We already know where we're living. And then how are we going to get there? Are we going to go on a 2.5-month boat cruise to get there? We're just going to fly there.
And so for you, what would you say in the team? What was your roles in the team?
Well, I think I've played
Or
every
you guys
role.
don't have identified roles? Or
So
are you talking about because you have many different teams?
yeah, like we have stuff in 3 different cities in New Brunswick. We have stuff in Alberta. We have stuff in maybe 5 different cities in Ontario. And it just sort of depends on who's taken over. Like if I see it like a baseball team, you need 9 players. And if somebody's missing, then you just fill in the person that's missing. Now I know about the three points, which is acquisitions, capital raise, and asset management. And usually you find your spot and then you just continue that focus and you stay in your position. But yeah, that can be very good. But sometimes you're not quite sure where you best fit, and maybe your styles and assets can accommodate all 3. Now, if there is 3 positions and somebody comes to the table that fits that position better, why would I argue with that? I would definitely, whoever is the best qualified or the best for that position, I don't mind. So if I bring capital, I'm okay. If I have to raise capital, I'm okay. If I'm doing asset management and underwriting and all that stuff, you sort of do it, but you might not be the lead on it. You still do it because you need to do it because if you're part of that project, you got to make sure that boat will sail and the holes are.
And you just need to have the understanding. Yeah, I agree with you, especially when it comes to the analysis. All the teams should really, everyone in the team should at least do the basic analysis so that they have that basic understanding of what they're getting themselves into. Because it even helps like that as the project is moving forward, fine, you have your one person that's actually the one taking the lead on the numbers. But if they're saying we're not meeting these margins, you have a better idea of why, because you've also done the numbers yourself compared to not at all, which I think a lot of people's downfalls is probably that, where the role gets very separated and they just don't get involved at all. Specifically, I think like the numbers, you just have, like you said, you just always have to, every person needs to know the numbers. Maybe some will definitely know them better than others, but at least knowing the numbers enough because like that, then you at least understand what will happen or what problems could arise or like that. If someone's telling you something needs to be done, you're like, it's easier to understand why that's happening.
Yeah, and the basic mechanics of it. Like if everybody knows the basic mechanics, then it will be easier and quicker to identify if anything's out of place. And the best of us sometimes mess up on the simplest thing.
Yeah.
We overlook something, so it's good. It's not that we're doing their job, but it's good to know all aspects of the different jobs that you're doing. And it's very similar to, I think it was Robert that mentioned about his training and everything. And it's not to be the accountants or the lawyers, but you have to have a general idea when things are out of place. So just have to find the people to do it. And you just need to know enough if it's being done sufficiently or something's missing.
100%,
right?
completely agree with that. Because, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Sometimes, or like that, especially where investors, like you're investing, you have many projects on the go. One can get missed because maybe there's more focus on another one because maybe there's a problem in that one, your mind's in one, and you need to still check something else out. But because your mind is still on that one, you may miss something, whereas like the other person on the team, at least shows like, oh, you forgot about this, and then, kind of remind. So it is that, because I've seen that happen even with me. I know that I'll go through contracts and I always go, because I think because I'm the more detail-oriented one, I feel like I'm always the one that gets put into that. But I always like double check what I'm doing because like that, sometimes I have way too many things going on and I'm just like, just make sure that I did catch everything, just in case, because you never know, because it's just like once we're signing this or once we're doing this, like we are doing it. And it's good to always, I feel like, have revisions. Peer reviews are always a great idea, I'd say. Yeah.
It's like spell checker. Sometimes when you're in a rush, you could have wrote that a million times, but all of a sudden a slip of the keys or the computer
Yeah.
takes over,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden that's not the word that you wanted to
100%.
use.
And sadly, we are not
So
perfect people. So, so sadly,
yeah,
mistakes will happen, and definitely, completely agree. I think that's a great point that you said. Having people review your work. I don't know if people actually do that, but definitely a great point to put out there because like that, no one's perfect, and if you think you are, you may see a failure happening along there, somewhere along the way.
yeah, pride can sort of take away from us. It's very hard to work with people with high pride because they don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
corrected. You know, why are you looking over my work? Somebody looks over my work and I'm not paying them. I'm thinking, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, this is a bonus.
Yeah.
Great, right? Like they're doing me a favor. And if they bring something to the table, I'm like, and it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
fixed. Hey, wow,
Yes,
that's
and I think
value
that is like, again, one of the great characteristics of being an entrepreneur, I would say, right, is being able to accept, because it is very interesting. I do notice that too, where some people, they will get really upset if you review their work. And to me, I've always been like, what's wrong with having extra eyes on everything, that's going on? Because and I think one of the great things of a team is we all have different minds, right? So people will look at even, let's say, analysis of numbers, let's say, even differently, or they can look at things in a creative way that can help out. And it is very interesting sometimes when people will get upset about that. And I think that's another good point that you said, that I feel like that should be like added on as a characteristic of being an entrepreneur, being a real estate investor. That don't get mad if people are reviewing your work. That's a good thing, because they'll either find a mistake that needs to be fixed, or they give you good ideas that you could implement in either the current project or a future project.
for sure. And that's funny because during the pandemic, we used to have meetings in my backyard and Wednesday mornings, 8 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times we would have masterminds about perspectives. So we would throw a deal on the table and then we would all come at it and see how many times we can sort of slice it
Mm-hmm.
and dice it. And and it's so funny because the first one that was presented to us, we all laughed because we look at that one now and we only saw it like one way. Okay, there's no tenants in it. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? It's not cash flowing. And then we let the deal go. And now we look at it, we're like, oh my gosh, half the tenants were already gone. That's half
Like,
the
that's an
work.
amazing deal. I can
So
start renovations immediately.
as soon as we get the key, we can start breaking stuff up. It's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And that's the deal that we have right now. It's in London, Ontario. It's a 10-plex, and it has one is retail. So we have a restaurant going in there. And I just had an interview or a meeting with the property management. We'll consume the old property management. And she's telling me that one left, one's leaving at the end of the month, and one's leaving next month at the end. And she's talking to me like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll fill those."
Like,
I'm
keep
like,
them
"No, no, no, no,
empty.
don't.
We want to renovate them.
I got a contractor with a hammer, and he's just knocking on the door. He's
Mm-hmm.
waiting to smash something." So that's great, and that's actually going to accelerate that project just so much more because of it being in Ontario and all the restrictions and obstacles that we have here compared to other provinces or country. Like, obviously I'm looking at the States as well because they're more landlord friendly, right? And we were estimating to have half the tenancy minimum in 3 years. Well, we almost have that in the first
Mm-hmm.
month.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
we might have our 3-year goal is more
Mm-hmm.
looking like a 1-year goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I always wanted to get back to your masterminding because I think that's also amazing that you would do that because even in there, like you said, you know, you start off with when the ideas are probably very generic or like maybe non-existent, but then you get onto the next one, like you said, and the next one, and then all of a sudden that creativity starts. Like one person does give some kind of idea, and then all of a sudden that spawns the other person to give an idea, and then all of a sudden like that, you're just seeing how many different opportunities there actually are with that one project because there are so many different minds on that deal to just figure out solutions, you know, and even I think in the projects themselves, having those minds there is what helps bring out quick solutions or different ideas that maybe, you know, the one person themselves may not find. So I love that.
Yeah, we did very well. We had a New Brunswick 19 unit in New Brunswick, and we knew that it would cash flow. So worst case scenario, it's going to cash flow. And then we had so many maybes, and I don't work off the maybes. I work off of stability, but the maybes are always nice. So we probably had like 101 different maybes on this project, and 90, probably 90, 97 of them didn't pan out, but it was a learning experience. You know, looking at separate meters, no, because of this, the cost was too high, and doing all this thing. But the ones that did pan out were the ones that we really didn't think that would pan out. We didn't think the city would allow us to expand 3 units inside the apartment, so now it's a 22. We assumed because it was an acre and half of the acre wasn't being used, we were like, oh, maybe we could do a new build. Well, now the city, we've done our blueprints. Now the city is very interested and looks like they're going to
It's
accept the new
amazing.
build. So, and the property's line touches the college property's line. So the possibilities of the ifs are really amplifying that investment itself. And then we were estimating to do a capital payback in 3 years because there was too many ifs. We knew it could run, and now we're looking at a year. So that was last June. So there was lots of benefits. We also used CMHCI Select on that project, which we were able to get it in 6 weeks. I got pulled in on the deal halfway through the due diligence, and that I heard was quite impressive to be able to do. A lot of brokers I talked to say 3 to 4 months.
Are you a mortgage broker too? Is that what you're saying about MLS Select?
No,
That you can figure out quickly?
I work with a lot of brokers because we need them. We need them, and one broker might be good for a particular strategy and the other one might not be. Maybe one broker is good for that particular city, but they won't do other cities. So you really need a lot of numbers and names in your power team, especially when you're doing different cities, different provinces, different countries.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, it'd probably be nice that I don't remember if we have one scheduled or we behind the scenes with you, but if you do have, I would love to hear about your MLI Select because it would be nice, like, because that everyone is in that process of learning it and going through the process and like figuring it out, right? Because it's new for everyone. So if you ever want to get on, I can't remember if we've scheduled it, but if we haven't, definitely let me know afterwards because I think that would be a great learning experience for people.
Yeah, MLI Select can be very good, but it really has to be balanced out, and you really understand the product and what you're trying to accomplish. We've used MLI Select for many buildings in our Alberta. Now, usually we will buy it with an open, and then do the renos, and then within a year we did a 15 unit in 14 months, and then went into MLI Select. And then one we did in 10 and a half months. That was a 23 unit. Obviously, the process of things can happen quite fast in other provinces. Ontario is a
Yeah,
different ball game,
100%.
right? Same game,
Sorry, you were saying? Oh,
same game, but
yeah.
different
Yeah.
field and different umpires.
Yes, it definitely does change depending on where you go, that's for sure. And so what would you say, so
Yeah.
what are your future goals now, if you'd like to share them? And with those future goals, like your 5, 10 year, like those nice big goals, what are the changes that you're doing right now to get to those big goals that you have?
I think it's basically it's the foundation of the investments at a whole, and it's right now I'm looking at sustainability, and so that would be basically like the foundation that it can really grow upon, right? So making sure that the power team, if there's any loose ends, and obviously they're always going to be changing slightly. You just don't want massive change, right? You know, somebody might work on another project, somebody new might work on a project, stuff like that. But you just don't want like 75% of your team to get up and disappear or something, right? But I guess we're always creating teams every time we go into a new city. But for me, I came back into it not necessarily for myself. I want to be able to help people. I know a lot of people say that, but for me, I want to be able to share the skills and what I've done, because I figured the 15 years I started thinking to myself, like, there's so many people that I could help out, I can improve. So at the end of the year, I will be with an organization coaching. So that will be good. I'll be able to actually reach people and help people and organize their portfolios, restructure. I know coaching is, there's pros and cons to it, but I think that would be very beneficial. I have apprentices now that are working with me, and I think they've done very well. A lot of people are looking for replacement income, I find, and they want to do it in like 6 months or a year.
Yeah, that always seems to be the trend, right?
And then,
They want to do it quickly, but hopefully they stick it through like that. Making it the 5, 10 year plan is usually the better approach, because then you feel like you're win. I don't know. I felt like it was such a huge win when I was just like, oh my God, I got this done in 3 years. That's insane.
yeah. Well, instant gratification is, I don't know what the word would be, but like instant gratification is sort of a downer. It's deceiving. It's short lived. We get that $1,000, we earn that $1,000, but we didn't make that $20,000. So in the shortfall, we buy that new coat, that hat, we go on that trip, but we've lost the projection of really where we wanted to end up being. So that instant gratification is something that society has been sort of adapted or adopted to, or whatever the case might be. We want our burger and we want it in 5 minutes.
100%. And you're missing out on like the amazing things that there are in life when you are in with instant gratification, because yeah, I don't know, the life is pretty fun on this side of the world. Right? It's so much fun. And I think if we're changing the views from like that instant gratification to like the growth and the journey, because it's true exactly what you're saying. It's like you get it, but you realize that it was the journey that was the fun part, like all the changes that you've had to do in yourself to get to where you are, or like just like having to be creative to do things, or whatever changes those may be. Either they're mental changes or physical changes, like you're having to do specific physical things or whatever it is, but the changes that you do to get to where you are. And then like I feel like when you reach the goal, like it's nice for, I feel like, 2 seconds, you're like awesome, but then you're like, what's next? And you're like, time for the new next big, like a bigger goal, something that the next bigger goal that excites you.
Yeah, it's very good to reward ourselves, but still focus on our needs and our wants, and I think that can really project us to where we truly want to be. And if my 5-year goal, if I was just burning up the money as fast as I was receiving it, like I did when I was younger, um,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be where I am today.
100%. Yeah. That's amazing. Any final words that you would like to tell our viewers before you go?
I think the most important is I think the biggest change and transformation in my life was when I separated my needs and my wants.
What do you mean by that?
So understanding you need a roof over your head, you need clothes, you might need transportation. Those are your basic needs. You could drive a $50,000 car, or you could drive a $500,000 car. The same car, the cars are going to get you to the same place. And I used to have a sports car when I worked for the car company. I had, a sport utility. I had a sports car in the driveway. And people used to say, "What do you want such a fast car for?" And I would always say, "I want to get to 0 to the speed limit as fast as possible." Yeah, so a car or a house or something, there's a need for it, and then we want, right? We want a massive pool, we want an indoor pool, we want a 3-car garage, we want the Rolls Royce, the Ferrari, all there, right? But they will come if you take care of
100%. Love that tip, especially like that. Especially if the goal is a bigger goal, I feel like. Right? And that's probably exactly what happened with you. You had your 10-year goal to fulfill what you needed, but then it helped you to get that ball rolling. And like that, you're able to do it in 5 years. So that's awesome. And probably, because your focus was very different to what to what other people's focuses were. Like you said, the instant gratification stops you really from being able to achieve the amazing things that you can achieve if you give yourself more time to improve and learn and take action.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I want to thank you very much for having me today. I really enjoyed it and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
And I
Sorry.
want to the meetups, all that. I think you're going to the conference coming up and stuff like that. There's always many events that we get to see one another and all the different investors and people that are in our world.
Yeah,
that's
you're going to be at the multifamily conference, you said?
Awesome. Yeah,
awesome.
I'll be going to that one. I won tickets.
Sorry, what's the last thing you said?
I won.
Oh, amazing!
Tickets.
Even better. That's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. Pablo says, great show. He obviously loved it too. And if you guys loved what you heard from Paul, he'll be tagged on this. So you'll definitely be able to follow him and being able to see what he's up to these days. And if you love my shows, definitely send us a like so we know that you loved it. And if you want to just see what else is coming up, definitely follow me so you know what shows are coming up, what I'm up to these days. Thank you, Paul, for coming on. Thank you, everyone. It was so much fun. We'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Bye, Paul.